This is Mary. Welcome to the IHC Craft Room.
In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful beaded wreath for Mother's Day. I'll show you all the steps and all the materials so that you can make one just like it for your mom. So grab all your stuff and let's get crafty.
For materials, we'll begin with a 10-inch bead wreath that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. Two 3.5-inch wired ribbons. I picked these up at Costco, but you can get them at the dollar store too. Some red plastic carnations, some red plastic roses, and some white accent flowers. Some berry picks, these are optional, I may or may not use them. Some green floral foam, a pair of decorative birds, aren't they pretty? A pipe cleaner, some floral wire, and a couple of zip ties, which I did not record. For tools, we're going to need a pair of scissors, a knife, and a glue gun. That's pretty much it. Let's get started on the base of our wreath. First, we're going to set up our flower bed by laying the wreath ring over top of our floral foam. And then using the knife, I'm going to cut along the curve of the ring. This block is super thick, so I'm also going to cut it in half. It didn't take long to realize that this itty bitty X-Acto knife was quite literally not going to cut it. I switched over to a big kitchen knife, which definitely did a better job. I've never cut floral foam before, so I don't know if this is always the case, but this stuff was stinky on a dry heave level. So warning, big yucks over here. Anyway, next we're going to use the floral wire to strap this foam down securely to our wreath ring. I'm going to really wrap the wire around and make sure it's really well attached. You won't be able to see the foam or wire once we're done, so don't worry about that. Just make sure it's really well secure. It's time to prep our flowers by pulling them off the stems and separating out the leaves. Red carnations were my mother's favorite, so they're definitely going to feature heavily in this wreath. But I wanted to add some additional visual appeal by adding some red roses too. This part is pretty straightforward, and to me, it's a lot of fun. I'm just adding a generous bead of glue to the bottom of each flower before inserting it into the foam. I'm going to spread out the carnations and then start adding in some roses until I have a super full and vibrant mix of blooms. A couple of things to make note of here are that the carnations and the roses are different lengths. The roses are much longer than the carnations. I really love the depth this creates. Since these flowers are the same color, having a different style of bud and length of petal causes the eye to stop and pay attention. Another thing to note is that I intentionally made the foam flower bed very nearly half the size of our wreath ring. That means our flowers are going to smack you in the face in a riot of blossoms. But if you want a more subtle look, then consider making the foam bed half the size of what I did here. One thing I've never been accused of being is subtle. So this amount of flowers is right for me. Next, we're going to add in all of the accents that are really going to make these flowers sing. I'm going to start with adding the leaves in here and there, giving me a little pop of green all over the place. And then we're going to follow that up with a few of these white accent flowers. I'm just going to take a few sprigs and spread them out throughout these flowers to really give an added bit of whimsy to the overall look and to cause a lot of contrast with the white. And in the end, I decided not to use the berry picks because I felt like we had a sufficient amount of red happening. Thanks. Awesome. Now that we have that under control, let's start working on making a beautiful little bow to add to the base of our wreath as the perfect finishing touch. We're going to make a small bow today because we don't want it to overpower our wreath. I'm going to start out by cutting ribbon into 12-inch pieces, and we're going to need 4 pieces of the taupe ribbon and 2 pieces of the red. Because, like I said before, we have a lot of red going on, so we want a little bit more taupe to balance things out on this bow. I am a big fan of dovetailing ribbon because I feel like it gives it a really finished look. To do that, you're just going to fold over your ribbon lengthwise and then cut it at an angle to get as deep or as shallow of a dovetail as you like. You can totally skip this step if you aren't as in love with dovetails as I am, but I am, so here we are. To make our bow, I'm going to lay out a piece of ribbon and fold it over so that there are about 2 inches left over, and then hold it in place. Next, I'll add some red ribbon and do the same thing. Fold it over so that we have 2 inches left. I'm going to keep alternating until we only have 1 piece of taupe ribbon left, and then it'll be time to bundle our ribbons together. I used some floral wire to do that, and frankly, I regretted it. I prefer using pipe cleaners to secure my bows, and I ended up wrapping this wire a bit too tight for my fluffing comfort, but hey, at least I know my bow won't fall apart, right? I'm going to do a bit of fluffing now, but I'll do it again later for an embarrassingly long amount of time. There's just something about fluffing a bow. I don't know that I ever feel like it's perfect, you know? Okie dokie, it's time to put this tail on this bow and attach it to our lush red wreath. I'm just going to take this last piece of taupe ribbon and bend it in half, give it a quick twist, and secure it to the bow before I take the entire bow and tie it to the base of our wreath. And we need to make sure to really wrap those wires around the wreath base snugly. Okay, now we're going to really fluff this bow. Get ready. Here we go. 7.5 hours later, I'm done fluffing my bow. So it's time to add one last special and personal touch, these beautiful little birds. One of the many nicknames I gave my mom was Ladybird. So these birds are the perfect finishing touch. Now, before we hang this wreath, we'll need to add something to hold it centered. Since this wreath is very heavy on one side only, it poses a little challenge which can be easily overcome by using zip ties. I'll secure one to the wreath base and thread the other one through it, and then turn that into a small loop. This will ensure that the wreath doesn't lean to the left and instead it'll hang centered. And now it's time for the final reveal. Just look at that riot of flowers and those pretty little birds. I just know my little ladybird would have loved this wreath. Happy Mother's Day in heaven, Mama. Thank you for joining me on this vibrant red carnation and rose little bird beaded wreath creativity session for Mother's Day. Seriously, I really need to make my sentences a little bit shorter. If you enjoyed it, why not say hello in the comments below? I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe so that we can continue to get crafty together. Toodaloo!